Walema sat on the cold, cracked floor of her small mud hut, staring at the empty pot on the fire. Hunger gnawed at her, but she had nothing to eat. Every day, she worked tirelessly in the fields, hoping to make enough to survive. But life in Tango village was unfair. While others laughed and feasted, she barely scraped by. Her neighbors whispered about her, calling her cursed. Walema felt the sharp sting of their words, but what could she do? She was alone, and loneliness was her closest companion. Her only wish was to change her fate and prove to the world that she wasn't weak. One sunny afternoon, as Walema was washing clothes by the river, a woman dressed in fine, colorful clothes approached her. Her name was Nimi, a wealthy merchant who always traveled with her guards. Walema, Nimi began with a kind smile, "I have a job for you." Walema's heart skipped a beat. A job meant money, money meant food. "What kind of job?" she asked cautiously. Nimi leaned closer and whispered, "I need you to collect used brassiere, from the women in the village. For each one you bring, I'll pay you generously." Walema frowned, confused. Why would anyone want old brassieres? Nimi noticed her hesitation and added, "Don't ask questions. Just do as I say, and you'll never go hungry again." The promise of wealth clouded Walema's doubts. That night, she lay awake, imagining a better life. The next day, she started her new job. To avoid suspicion, she offered colorful buckets and bowls in exchange for old clothes. Women eagerly traded their worn items for the bright, shiny gifts, and Walema discreetly took the brassieres. Days turned into weeks, and Walema's trade flourished. She began buying better food, mending her clothes, and even fixing her old hut. Villagers noticed her transformation, whispering about her sudden fortune. Walema smiled to herself but never revealed her secret. Yet, deep down, unease stirred. What did Nimi do with the brassieres? And why had she chosen Walema for such a strange task? Little did she know, the answers would shake the very foundations of Tango village. Walema's newfound success did not go unnoticed. While most villagers marveled at her sudden wealth, one woman, Minu, grew suspicious. Minu was known for her curiosity and sharp instincts. She couldn't understand how Walema, once the poorest among them, had risen so quickly. "Where is she getting all this money?" Minu whispered to her friend one evening as they watched Walema carry a sack of items to her hut. "Something isn't right." Minu began observing Walema closely. She noticed how Walema would leave her house late at night, carrying bundles of brassieres toward the outskirts of the village. Driven by her curiosity, Minu decided to follow her. One moonlit night, Minu crept behind Walema, keeping a safe distance. Her heart raced as Walema reached a hidden clearing in the forest, where Nimi was waiting. Minu hid behind a tree and watched in horror as Nimi spread the brassieres in a circle and began chanting strange words. The air grew heavy, and Minu felt an eerie chill. Terrified, Minu ran back to the village, her mind spinning with fear and questions. She knew she had to warn the others, but who would believe her? The next morning, Minu gathered a small group of villagers and shared what she had seen. At first, they laughed, dismissing her as overly imaginative. But as she described Nimi's chants and the unsettling atmosphere in the forest, their expressions turned serious. The village elders, wise and respected, were summoned. They listened carefully to Minu's story and exchanged worried glances. "If what Minu says is true," said the oldest elder, "we may be dealing with dark forces." They decided to confront Walema. That evening, the villagers gathered in the square, calling for her to explain herself. Walema stood before them, her face pale. She tried to defend her actions, insisting that she was only doing a harmless trade. But the elders pressed her. "Why did you agree to collect the brassieres? What is Nimi doing with them?" Walema hesitated, her secret on the verge of unraveling. Finally, she admitted, "I don't know what Nimi does with them. I was desperate for money. That's all I know." The crowd murmured uneasily, their trust in Wolema shattered. The elders decided to consult the chief priest, a man known for his wisdom and spiritual insight. The next day, the priest would perform a ritual to uncover the truth. Little did they know, the truth would reveal a danger far greater than anyone imagined. At dawn, the chief priest arrived in the village. Clad in flowing white robes, he carried a staff adorned with sacred symbols. The villagers gathered around, their faces tense with fear and anticipation. The priest began by lighting a sacred fire and chanting prayers. As the flames danced, he cast protective herbs into the fire, creating thick, fragrant smoke. Then, he turned to Wolema and asked her to recount every detail of her dealings with Nimi. Wolema trembled as she spoke, her voice shaky. She admitted to collecting braziers for Nimi but insisted she knew nothing about their purpose. The priest closed his eyes, deep in thought, then turned to the crowd. "A powerful witch walks among us," he declared, his voice echoing. "The braziers are being used in a ritual to drain the strength and prosperity of our women. This witch is stealing your power to fuel her own dark magic." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Fear took hold as women whispered among themselves, wondering if their own braziers had been used in the ritual. The priest raised his hand to silence them. "We must act swiftly," he continued. "Tonight, we will confront this evil and break her curse. But beware, this witch will not surrender easily." The villagers nodded, their fear mingled with determination. They prepared themselves for the night ahead, unaware of the shocking twist that awaited them. As night fell, the village of Tango was cloaked in an uneasy silence. Women huddled in their homes, clutching their loved ones, while the men prepared weapons, though unsure if spears and knives could harm a witch. The chief priest gathered a group of brave villagers, including Minu, to confront Nimi. He carried sacred charms and a pouch filled with protective powder. Wolema was reluctantly brought along, her knowledge of Nimi's movements could be crucial. "I didn't mean for this to happen," Wolema whispered, tears streaming down her face. Minu, standing beside her, gave a curt nod but remained focused. "Just help us stop her," Minu replied. The priest led the group to the forest clearing where Minu had witnessed the strange ritual. The air felt heavy with tension, and every rustle of leaves made them jump. When they arrived, the clearing was eerily empty, save for a faint circle of ash on the ground. "She knows we are coming," the priest said grimly. "Stay alert." Suddenly, a chilling laugh echoed through the trees. Nimi emerged from the shadows, her eyes glowing unnaturally. "So, you've come to stop me," she sneered. "Do you even know the power you're facing?" The villagers froze, but the priest stepped forward. "Your darkness has no place here," he said firmly, sprinkling the protective powder in a wide arc. Nimi recoiled slightly but laughed again. "You think your charms can stop me," she taunted. "Fools. I have already drained your women of their strength. Their prosperity is mine." At her words, several women in the group collapsed, clutching their chests. Wolema watched in horror as the truth of Nimi's power became clear. But then, something unexpected happened. Minu stepped forward, holding a brazier she had secretly kept. "You missed this one," she said boldly, throwing it into the circle of ash. Nimi screamed as the priest chanted a powerful incantation. The brazier burst into flames, and Nimi staggered back, her power visibly weakening. The villagers seized the moment, charging toward her as the priest continued his chants. Nimi's screams filled the night, but she could not escape the sacred power surrounding her. As the flames consumed the brazier, Nimi fell to her knees, her glowing eyes fading. The priest stepped closer, holding his staff high. "Your reign of terror ends here," he declared. With one final chant, the priest threw more protective powder into the fire. The flames roared, and Nimi let out a final, piercing cry before collapsing into a heap. Her body turned to ash, scattering in the wind. The villagers stared in silence, unable to believe what they had just witnessed. Slowly, the women who had collapsed began to stir, their strength returning. The curse had been broken. Walema sank to the ground, sobbing. "I didn't know it would lead to this," she cried. Minu placed a hand on her shoulder. "You were wrong, but you helped us in the end. That matters too." The villagers returned to Tango, shaken but relieved. The priest urged them to burn any remaining items linked to Nimi's rituals, ensuring her power could never return. But for Walema, the night's events marked the beginning of a painful journey of redemption. The next morning, the village gathered once more in the square. Walema stood before them, her head bowed. She confessed everything, her desperation, her deal with Nimi, and her regret. "I was blinded by my hunger and shame," she admitted. "I never imagined my actions would bring harm to all of you." The villagers listened in silence. Some were angry, while others pitied her. Finally, the chief elder spoke. "Walema's greed brought us danger, but her courage helped us end it. Let her story be a lesson to us all." Minu, now seen as a hero, was praised for her bravery in uncovering the truth. "You saved us," one villager said, and others nodded in agreement. Minu smiled but remained humble. "I only did what was right," she replied. Though forgiven by the village, Walema couldn't forgive herself. She decided to leave Tango and start anew elsewhere. "I need to find peace with my actions," she told Minu before departing. The villagers bid her farewell, wishing her luck. Minu watched her leave, feeling a mix of sadness and hope. "May you find the peace you seek," she whispered. Walema's departure marked the end of a dark chapter in Tango's history. But her story would live on as a cautionary tale, told to future generations to remind them of the dangers of greed and deception. Minu's bravery earned her the admiration of the village, but with it came an unexpected weight. People often turned to her for advice or protection, as if she had some special power to ward off evil. Though flattered, Minu found it overwhelming. "I'm just an ordinary woman," she told her closest friend one evening. "I didn't defeat Nimi alone. It was the priest's guidance and the courage of the villagers that saved us." Despite her protests, Minu became a symbol of hope. She used her new influence to unite the village, encouraging honesty and cooperation. "We must always remain vigilant," she reminded them, "because evil thrives where there is division." Though Nimi was gone, her curse left scars on the village. Some women struggled to regain their health, while others mourned the loss of their strength and wealth. The chief priest worked tirelessly to heal them, performing rituals to restore balance. One day, while tending to her garden, Minu noticed an old brazier buried in the soil. Fear gripped her as she remembered the priest's warning to destroy all remnants of Nimi's magic. She quickly brought it to the priest, who examined it with concern. "This is no ordinary brazier," he said. "It carries traces of dark energy. Nimi's power may still linger in hidden places." The priest's words spread through the village, reigniting fear. Minu decided to take action, forming a group to search for and destroy any remaining cursed items. The effort brought the villagers closer together, but an unease lingered in their hearts. Meanwhile, Walema wandered far from Tango, seeking a new life. She settled in a distant village where no one knew her past. There, she worked hard and built a modest but honest living. Still, guilt followed her like a shadow. At night, she dreamed of Nimi's haunting laugh and the villagers' frightened faces. One day, she met an elderly woman named Laila, who sensed her sorrow. "You carry a heavy burden," Laila said gently. "But forgiveness is not only for others, it's for yourself, too." Inspired by Laila's wisdom, Walema decided to write a letter to the people of Tango. In it, she apologized once more and thanked them for giving her the chance to make amends. She sent the letter with a traveling merchant, hoping it would reach the village. Back in Tango, life slowly returned to normal. The village thrived under Minu's leadership, and the elders worked to rebuild trust among the people. The chief priest continued his teachings, emphasizing the importance of unity and vigilance. When Walema's letter arrived, it was read aloud in the square. Her words moved many to tears. She was wrong, one villager said, but she's trying to make things right. That takes courage. The elders decided to forgive Walema fully, sending her a message of peace in return. Minu smiled as she read the letter, feeling a sense of closure. Years later, the story of Nimi, Walema, and the cursed braziers became a tale passed down to the children of Tango. It was told not just as a warning about greed and deception but also as a story of redemption and the power of unity. Minu grew old, her name remembered as the hero who faced the darkness and brought light to the village. Walema, though far away, found peace in her new life, knowing she had been forgiven. And the people of Tango learned to cherish honesty and kindness, for they understood that evil could only thrive in the shadows of mistrust. Their village became a beacon of strength, bound by the lessons of their past. The story of Tango would never be forgotten, reminding all who heard it that even in the darkest times, courage and unity could bring hope and healing.